We did not choose where, when, or what we were born into. The societies that adopted us weren't made for us specifically. So, now. What comes with being born into a society? Society, described by Science Daily and Wikipedia, is a large social group sharing the same geographical or social territory, typically subject to the same political authority or dominant cultural expectation. Societies come with unique sets of pros and cons. Living in them, we are generally subject to both. Using a piece of media to exemplify this reality, Black Mirror's pilot episode from Season 3, Nosedive, explores a society utilizing a social media-like system to influence job opportunities, housing availability, and travel. In order for their system to function, the society members rate one another on a scale of at least 1 to 5 stars based off of interaction or social media-derived content like posts. Naturally, the greater someone's score, the greater opportunities the society grants them, and the weaker someone's score, the fewer. The cost feature of Nosedive's society is directly shown in the episode, as we follow an employee offering coworkers smoothies to attract good ratings. But by the end of the episode, we see them unable to access their office building because of their weakening score. Yet, why this example is great fuel for discussion is because while having access to a nice job and its benefits through work environment, housing, probably salary, etc., is a direct result of Nosedive's society, the fired worker will now likely have to take on a less fulfilling career while still retaining the negative qualities that come with a social score-driven society. With a lot on the line, the pressure to socially score well encourages ingenuity and generally leaves people who want the most from the system strategizing their lives away. Many of them seek a rich life brought to you by a society, but if their reality has always left them hustling for reward, then it's fair to believe they don't know how much better they could be living without the superficial behavior and ever-present lifestyle punishments. Nosedive exemplifies people who oppose this thought, though. Some characters disagree with the system, but still work with it to lead the happiest lives they can. Furthermore, the make the most of it attitude is important to note because of its application to our own realities. We can weigh the benefits and costs of society, living as we please, but that doesn't mean we'll always be able to make ideal choices or immediately change our future experiences for the better. When I mention our abilities to leave societies entirely, I rather mean the ability to move from one society to another, because societies are everywhere, but that doesn't mean we cannot optimize our ways of life and even make change. I do think it's important to mention that, however. Carry on. Standing ground as a member of society comes in a variety of colors that considers resource limitations, emotional elements, and the obligation to defend home. It can be overwhelming when learning about the negatives that come with a given society. Unsurprisingly, a reaction to discomfort can be something as simple as wanting to leave. However, an action so simple becomes an impossible task when facing the realities of what it means to leave. A limitation of resources is probably the most understood reason as to why someone couldn't just pick up their life and move elsewhere. And depending on who and what is being moved, money is increasingly necessary. In order to leave something as difficult to gauge as society, an individual may be looking to find enough resources to relocate cities, states, or countries even, yet alone to relocate a family. Following physical limitation, there are emotional factors. Do you remember the emotions you had when moving from home or graduating a program with a lot of your friends or parting with family, etc.? Being present in those final moments, you can feel the good times and memories rush over you as you realize a chapter of your life or experiences has come to an end. It can swoop you up, can't it? We are only human, so just as we can be limited by our physical necessities through money that let us buy our physiological needs like food, shelter, etc., we can be limited by our emotional necessities. Emotions' relationship with discouraging someone from leaving society can be an individual prioritizing living near family, who is staying put in the society, finding comfort in nostalgic settings. They probably grew up in the society if they're trying to leave it. Or even just preferring a climate that improves your quality of life. Of course, all of this talk is for quality of life to begin with, so determining whether the benefits of a decision outweigh the costs is overall reliable thinking. I want to emphasize the importance of emotional consideration, or at least emotional compassion, particularly when decision making, because experiencing emotion or emotions that may hold us back from acting on a decision, or emotions that encourage us to act, is unapologetically a part of humanity, and it can be difficult. Moreover, somewhat tied to the emotional factors that keep someone from leaving their society, their life in their society, is the obligation, maybe even dignity, in defending their home, themselves, and their community from proclaimed soured values. We can think of this idea in terms of battle over territory. One group has territory that is aggressively desired by another group, and if the aggressive group is denied the land, they may seek to take it by force. This leaves the original group defending their land from being conquered for economic, religious, political reasons, etc. The opposing group's ideals are likely not in line with the landowning group, so the landowning group standing their ground and protecting it is not only honoring their beliefs and values, but giving the group a better chance at keeping their overall resources. On a smaller scale, through individuals in a society, they may feel that the political and dominant cultural expectations inhibit their livelihood and that of their family or friends. The members of a society likely call it home already, so why would they leave and let their homes be wasted away by a social structure that they themselves comprise if they are able to make a difference? I do want to briefly mention the caveat of corrupt governments, because a corrupt government is not the same thing as a society. And although I would love if change could be made by the people that make up the society in all cases, that is most definitely not the case. For the people living under unsafe governmental control, change can lead to compromised safety and otherwise just be very stressful. So I wanted to mention that. With so much attention highlighting reasons we can be stuck in society, it's worth briefly mentioning the value in travel, or vacation travel even. Although travel is not accessible for everyone, especially for those who need to allocate their resources elsewhere or for safety, it can provide perspective of foreign lifestyles that potentially give space for the voyager to reassess their own desires and what they are otherwise subjected to through their society. Nevertheless, because leaving one society can be comprised of physical, emotional, and/or obligatory concerns, we are left with another question. How can we live happier in ill-fitted societies? It's safe to say most people want and need a break from the seriousness of life and ill news every now and then. Enter escapism. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines escapism as the habitual diversion of the mind to purely imaginative activity or entertainment as an escape from reality or routine. Contemporary escapism, especially, is worth noting while speaking of society because of the online resources we can now readily utilize to escape in this day and age. Internet aesthetics have prominently existed with the rise of social media platforms like Tumblr in 2007, Instagram, and TikTok from the 2010s through present day. They largely consist of many kinds of people sharing their stylized lives online. This form of escape is societally significant because societies may restrict people's lives to look and perform a certain way, almost like a standardization. For example, living in an urban society may mean there's less opportunity to grow food for oneself, so there is a reliance on market shopping. This idea can also be applied to living in a closed-minded society where self-expression is repressed in favor of self-preservation, creating a hostile and ingenuine society. Two popular internet aesthetics in contrast to these examples are Cottagecore and dark academia. Cottagecore is a movement that romanticizes the ways of an early rural lifestyle through an appreciation for nature and sustainability, baking, crafts, and a vintage aesthetic. Using this resource, someone who wished their lives included more personal agriculture may now have the opportunity to see how a range of other people incorporate it into their own lives. From the people who plant a complete raised bed vegetable garden in their picturesque yard, to the people who solely hang-draw a small bundle of herbs for the week. Before moving on to dark academia, I want to talk about why I find Cottagecore's relationship with wanting to leave society so natural and fascinating, for that matter. Whenever I've heard people mention they want a break from their daily lives, whether that be through interacting with a lot of people or generally just like with their job, they tend to lean pretty heavily in the opposite direction, mentioning they want to be more so off-grid and or do something like camping or being in a cabin for a period of time. And I find this interesting in comparison to Cottagecore because the two share some overlapping ideas like simplicity for the most part, and bouncing off of simplicity, I would say generally doing activities that visibly are working towards your progression, like chopping wood for a fire that keeps you warm, or growing food that you eat for survival. There are these rather intrinsic elements of doing what we need to survive that I would say most people share to some degree, and I think Cottagecore is fascinating in that matter because it's almost like a transitionary step or like a mid-step between living generally in our society with the chaoses versus living in the wilderness. There are elements in Cottagecore like the baking, crafts, sustainability, like I mentioned, that we can implement into our lives on a daily basis, like with the small bundle of herbs and stuff versus the vegetable garden that many people wish they could have, including myself. Regardless, I digress. That overlap is why I think it's worth mentioning so heavily as a form of escapism, because although not all internet aesthetics perform the same way in terms of wanting to be detached from society in our daily life, I think the difference with cottagecore in comparison to other internet aesthetics is that most people have some part of them that really does enjoy the simplicity and the elements of working towards your progress and survival. So I just wanted to mention that before moving on, because it is why I included it in this discussion. Cool. Moving on. Following cottagecore, dark academia largely focuses on prosperity through education, self-discovery, and an admiration for historic arts. With the academia subculture specifically, and many other subcultures for that matter, the safe space environment means an interest in education and awareness, like mental health awareness or privilege awareness, can make their way to an audience in general, potentially introducing them to new ideas to expand their view of the world and their society. Moreover, when internet aesthetics like academia or cottagecore are received by their audiences, they can not only be a form of escape through fantasy, but they can inspire. Cottagecore promotes strength and charm and creativity and being capable. Dark academia pursues mystery and nurtures curiosity. They are communities above all else, and are ones that seek the enrichment of life. I like to ask myself why these kinds of discussions are purposeful. Why does it matter that being born into someone's society is acknowledged? How is it useful to recognize the benefits and costs of the societies we live in? What's the reason for being aware of restrictions in choice? And does escapism through internet aesthetics make a difference? Well, a lot of these questions come down to awareness, and somewhat self-awareness at that. When we ask questions about the pros and cons of societal structures, it makes room for personal assessments of what we want our lives to look like versus how society wants them to look. Recognizing our capabilities and restrictions to act let us make decisions that best help us fight and or silently prosper in various conditions. Even when our voices feel insignificant when we crave change, what we support and how we behave, we perpetuate. And in times of silence, we are not without escape. Escapism through cultures like cottagecore and dark academia and internet aesthetics provide comfort and make change. Because when people begin to feel opportunities of happiness and individuality within themselves, their mere existence may inspire others to do the same. And that's kind of what we're after at the end of the day, isn't it? Society as a concept and its effects is a lot to attempt to wrap a mind around. Heck, I learn more about it nearly every day, and it's not going anywhere either. Born to shit, forced to wipe. We may not have had much say in being introduced to our own societies, being born into someone's society, but that doesn't mean we can't try to make them our own. And that's about all I have to say, so thank you for taking time out of your day to watch and or listen to what I had to say. This discussion was inspired by that Reddit quote I mentioned at the end of the video, born to shit, forced to wipe, because I thought it was hilarious, and I just happened to watch Nosedive from Black Mirror recently, and I thought it went beautifully together. So yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, night, wherever you are. Okay, peace. Peace.